Today is day 5 of my 6 days on the Camino de Santiago. And so tomorrow I will arrive in Santiago de Compostela after walking 113 kilometers, which is about 67 miles or so over the course of 6 days. So very exciting, and a little nostalgic already because we're almost there. And in general, you don't want the experience to be over. It is not easy for sure, but it's one of those things I say. I imagine it's like childbirth. I don't have kids, but like when it's over, you forget all the bad parts kind of thing. Um, so anyway, I was just thinking about the trip and how people, when you come back from a trip, they'll say, "How was your trip?" And those of us that have done the Camino de Santiago, it's just such a hard question to answer because if you went on a trip to see some sights, you show the pictures and maybe you posted some stuff on your social media about your trip and the things you saw. But the Camino de Santiago, it's so hard to sum up in a couple pictures or with, oh, we got to see this or do this because it's not about that on the Camino. So I was already starting to think today of like some of the just amazing experiences that I've had on this Camino that have, of course, reminded me about other cool experiences I've had on other Caminos. But the first one I want to tell you about is last night. The place I was staying was off Camino, which I've mentioned before is not necessarily my favorite. I like to stay just pretty close to the Camino route, but um, last night, the guy had to pick us up to bring us out to the place where we were staying, and the family is just darn delightful. Um, the kind of patriarch, I guess, of the property lived in Switzerland in the German speaking part for 25 years. So he was able to speak with the German pilgrim that I was walking with. She had up until that point pretty much only spoken English because we hadn't met any of the many German pilgrims. So anyway, it's delightful because she got to talk to him. And then he just really loves talking to pilgrims, you can tell. And so I started chatting with him when she was like in the shower or something. And then he took me in to show me like a lower room where they'll cook a meal if they have a group of people that come and stay. Um, Told me it was the former cow barn of the property because it's on the lowest level. And a lot of these older houses here in Spain, the main level was for the animals, and then the people lived upstairs. And so this was another one of those kind of places, but I had no idea until he told it to me. And he said, yeah, the home originally belonged to his wife's family. And when he met his wife at first, they had 5 cows that they were keeping. They were farmers in this area back in the day. There are still cow farmers here, not as many as before, obviously. But then they took that room, and now it's this great room. It's got a television and nice couches and this huge long table for like 15 people and a kitchen where they could cook for groups. And he was just delighted. We talked a lot about Spain and some of the Spanish rules about housing and businesses, and I mean we just covered all kinds of topics. And then he said something about his wine cellar, and so then he took me around the corner to his wine cellar. At this point, my German friend had come out, and I said, "Come join us." And he took us in. He's got tons of bottles of wine in this wine cellar. And he said, "Oh, and do you want this one or do you want this one?" And like gave us a bottle of wine to share between the two of us. He was just delighted, wanted to know about us. And I just love these experiences on the Camino. Yeah, so there was that. And then a few nights ago, we had along the Camino, obviously, there are plenty of churches. A lot of them are not usually open because, the time of day that you're going by, or it's not a church that there's enough parishioners at anymore. Maybe the priest comes out one Sunday a month and he goes between different churches over the course of a month. So it's one of the things that surprised me on Camino. My first Camino initially is how few of the churches were open here in Spain. In France, it's a little bit different on the Camino routes, but there is a movement now to have volunteers come that can open these churches for the pilgrims. Anyway, whether you're religious or not, couple things about the churches. One is they're a great place to cool off, and I know they're they're obviously I respect the spaces as well, but um, to me, it's a space of welcome for any pilgrim, whether you're religious or not. And yeah, they're just they're beautiful thick stone walls, so it's always nice and cool in there. But also in a lot of these Camino towns, they will offer a pilgrim mass, and sometimes it's every single night they have a pilgrim mass, and it's like the daily mass, and so it's local parishioners that will come, but any pilgrims are invited to come. And usually at the end, they'll do a blessing over the pilgrims. And again, whether you're religious or not, it's one of the things I like about the Camino. You're considered a pilgrim on the Camino. Um, and by all means, you don't have to go to any of this, but I always like to, if I can, attend a pilgrim mass. It's kind of a cultural thing as well. People that don't even understand the Spanish language will go to it. Um, and so this one, just after I sat down, and the priest started the mass, you could hear the door open in the back and like some shuffling. Like there were clearly people coming in and they were being quiet and respectful, but all of us kind of turned around and it was a huge group of people, mostly young people. And they all kind of filtered into the back rows. And then about 10 of them or so came, and I had seen a guy come in with a guitar case on, and he and a group of about 10 of them went to sit in the front couple pews of the church. And he pulled out his guitar, and so they sang throughout the mass, which was great. And then at the end of the mass, they did a pilgrim blessing, and so the priest invited all of us right up to the front in front of the altar, and we all kind of, were in this half circle. And I mean, I couldn't I later learned there were 82 people with this group that came in. I'll tell you more about them in a second, and the priest who said the mass was actually he was on pilgrimage himself with this group. And so what happens is, when these church groups come, the priests will get in touch with the priests from other towns, and so and they'll invite, the visiting priest to say a mass and stuff. So anyway, the local parish priest came up, and he was in like jeans and sneakers and he had his little collar on and stuff. And he told the priest who said the mass, who was visiting, hey, go down there for the blessing because you're a pilgrim and I'll do the blessing. And so he was down there with us with his big group. And they did a blessing over us. And then the local parish priest invited the kids and I say kids, they were all over 15. He invited them to do some more music. And he hooked the kids' guitar up to an amplifier that they had and like turned it up, and they're just jamming along to this music. I mean, it was it was incredible. I mean, it was just their spirit and oh my gosh, like there's things like this that you're like, I just couldn't. And then literally, I didn't plan this at all, and I love that about the Camino. Like these things that happen that you're just like, I didn't even know there was a pilgrim mass. I didn't know that group would be there. At the end, I talked to some of the people in the group. And so it's a youth group from a parish in Madrid. So anyone over 15 can come on a walk on the Camino that they do apparently every year. Some of them had shirts from previous years saying which routes they had done or whatever. And they were delightful, happy to talk to me and answer my questions, because my first question was, where are you staying? Because there's not accommodation for 80 something people in some of these Camino towns. And they said they're staying at the town gym. And so this is the cool thing in Spain. A lot of the towns of some size. I mean, I live in a town of 6,500 and we have a gym and a pool and all that kind of stuff. So this is a common thing in Spain. And so what they do is the gym is closed, and they just when the gym's closed in the evening, they spread out sleeping bags on the gym floor, and these folks sleep in the gym. And again, it's a huge thing to coordinate, but it's just impressive. I haven't seen them again, which I'm kind of sad about because I would love to chat with them a little bit more, but you never know when you're going to run into people on the Camino de Santiago. Speaking of which, my first morning when I had breakfast, there were these two guys from Argentina who now live in Barcelona. And I was talking to them. We were in this cafe. It was pilgrims. Pilgrims talked to other pilgrims. And They were just delightful, and I wasn't leaving for a little while yet, and they were walking a little bit of a different schedule than I was, so I was kinda bummed because I thought they were cool guys, and it would be nice to run into them again. Well, that was day 1. I'm now on day 5, of this route, the Camino Inglés, and I walked into a bar to get a snack with my friend, and there they were. They're like, "Oh my gosh." They were just so excited to see me, and it took me a second to realize they reminded and I was like, "Oh my god." Like, it's literally, I've only been here for 5 days, and I feel like these are my people. Like, you have this community, you keep crossing paths with people. It's just I mean, I'm getting chills even just talking about it. It's just so magical, these experiences, and so we ended up walking the last, gosh, 3 or 4 hours, of our day with them, and thankfully too, because today was a lot of oh my gosh, it was just beautiful. We were going through lots of woods, basically paths in the middle of the woods, so even though the sun was out, we were in shade. It was beautifully cool, and just beautiful countryside, tiny little towns with the local bar where you could stop and have a snack. And oh my gosh, it was just delightful. But then at the end, as sometimes happens on the Camino, it's not always beautiful, beautiful trails. Um, we ended up walking, it was a path and we were separated from the highway, but you could hear the highway. We were above it a little bit, but on a path. And it was in the sun. And I mean, this was towards the end of our walk. And we are, thankfully, we're with a group of 4 because you keep each other going. One person, didn't have any water left. So, I share my water with her. Somebody else pulls out their sunscreen. Mine's in my day pack. And they're like, oh, here, just use my like it's just, we were at one of the bars having a little snack and some water and, or energy drink or whatever it is. And this one woman comes in and she's talking to this other couple who one of them's having a foot problem. And she pulls out like this first aid kit, like you wouldn't believe. And she's listing off, well, I have this and I have this and I have this. And it's an amazing thing to experience um, this whole community of absolute strangers coming together to accomplish this mission. And it's funny that this came up because just today, my friend Kristen Fellows, who's a writer, she lives in Portugal, an American. Anyway, she wrote a lovely post today, and one of the things she was talking about was she wrote about the Cornell University definition of belonging, and I actually jotted it down because it was just so fitting for today. They say that belonging is the feeling of security, support when there is a sense of acceptance, inclusion, and identity for a member of a certain group. And that is so what the Camino is all about. Like it's this community of people. Everyone's everyone's included. Everyone's accepted for however you want to do this, whether you're carrying a backpack or a day pack. Whether you're 22 or 82, whether you're from Spain or Germany or Argentina or whatever other country, from the people that I've met along this route in just these last 5 days. It is unbelievable to me how much a part of a community you can feel in such a short period of time. And the young German woman that I was walking with today, at the end of our it was like day 2 or 3, I can't remember. We had just met like kind of another group, and the 6 of us were sitting in the evening, and she was like, "I can't believe we just met each other this morning. It feels like, we're old friends." I mean, it's just so powerful. It's amazing. So anyway, and the other thing that I thought was interesting today on the Camino is I did meet I had 2 Appalachian Trail experiences. And for those of you that are not from the US, the Appalachian Trail is a trail that takes like 6 months to walk if you want to do it all in one stretch, from Georgia in the southern United States up to Maine in the northeastern US. Um, and today I met a guy who had done the Appalachian Trail, and he was actually walking the opposite direction of us. He had been to Santiago. He was walking out on our route, and then he's going to go walk another Camino route. And he was kind of comparing a little bit, and it seemed like it was almost the Appalachian Trail, it's night and day from the Camino de Santiago. I'm going to be honest with you. I always tell people, if you've done the Appalachian Trail, do not expect the Camino de Santiago to be like that. Um, I have done tons of Caminos. I have zero desire to do the Appalachian Trail. Um, I like that I sleep in a bed every night. I like that I don't have to cook my meals. I like that I can have cafe con leche every day, things like that. So, but anyway, it was just interesting to hear this guy. It didn't seem like he was still trying to figure out what this whole Camino thing was about. He didn't find it as physically challenging. And if you've done the AT and spend 6 months living in the woods, basically, no, it's not that. It's there's a great difference between these experiences. So it was just interesting. And when he left us, my friend and I were saying, yeah, it doesn't seem like it was just such a different perspective that we don't usually see on the Camino. And then we ended up walking. We met these two guys from Argentina, one of whom wants to do the Appalachian Trail. And so we were talking about the differences between the Appalachian Trail and the Camino de Santiago. And I will probably write an entire blog post on this, because it is worth noting that they're very, very different. Not to say one is any better than the other. They're just very different. So anyway, and the Camino de Santiago is clearly my preference. The other thing that I've kind of been reflecting on, because I get into Santiago tomorrow, and then you get all this emotion about getting to Santiago. And so it's kind of like a good time to just like, I think a lot of us, the day before we go in, it's like, oh man, like it's almost over. It's bittersweet. Like you're so, it's, you know, I always tell people, people will go on and on about how wonderful the Camino is, but not everybody tells you it is hard. It's not a piece of cake. Some routes obviously are easier than others. But yeah, it's amazing and it's hard. So like today, I mean, the last, I don't know, a few miles, we were having to, really help each other out. I mean, we were all ready to be done. We had a longer walk today. We did close to, I think, about 24 kilometers, which was actually what we did the day before. It's not the distance I'm going to do when I lead my group walk necessarily. In the beginning, for sure, we're not going to do distances like that, but people have the option to do that later. But it was good for me to kind of reconnect with that feeling of helping each other out, and what it is to do this thing, that it's not a piece of cake, no matter what the guy who did the Appalachian Trail thought. But one of the things that we were also reflecting on together, I lost my train of thought for a second, was or that I was reflecting on, really, were the shared meals. I love sitting down, eating with other people. If there's no pressure involved, if I'm not responsible for, setting the table and cooking the meal and making sure everyone has drinks and all of that kind of stuff. I like cooking with people when there's no pressure. I like eating with people when there's no pressure. And the Camino gives me the opportunity to certainly do that. These days, more the eating as opposed to the cooking. But for example, the other night there was I tend to run into sporting events when I'm on the Camino de Santiago, in the sense of there apparently some big women's soccer match between Germany and Spain was happening a couple nights ago. And what another thing I love about the Camino is I was walking with people from Germany and from Spain, all of whom, were interested in watching this game. And so we went out to dinner together. They had the game on. We had all this great food, kind of tapas style, that we shared, and just that experience of sharing over food and drink. It's just, there's just so many amazing things that happen on the Camino. And yes, when we got in today, and we got in at 3:30, and we sat right down for lunch, because as some of you that have been reading my stuff or listening to these posts know, that's lunchtime here, between 1:30 and 3:30, and then the restaurants don't open again till like 8 o'clock. So we sat down for lunch and I got up and oh my gosh, I could feel it in the back of my legs. And when the rest of it, when we all got up, we were all comparing with which muscles on our bodies were in pain. So again, this is all just part of the community. I'm not saying this to be like, this is a terrible thing. It's just it's like any life experience, you take the good with the bad, and but it's just so the good so outweighs everything else. And I just feel really lucky to be able to, gosh, I'm gonna tear up here. To be able to do this, to have the time, the money, the physical ability to be able to do something like this over and over and over again. Um, and then to share the experience with other people, to share the experience with people that are watching this either live or years from now even, to share the experience with people that are interested in doing this, to help other people make their way to the Camino de Santiago. It's just it's amazing to be able to be in this position, and to do this, to do the Camino, to help other people. Anyway, I am just yeah, feeling very grateful at this point. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me anything about the Camino de Santiago. And if you think of stuff later, feel free to just jot a little note on one of my posts or something. I'm happy to um, take those as ideas for either something to talk about in a live conversation or something to write a post about. And yeah, tomorrow at the same time is going to be my last live directly from the Camino de Santiago. I still do lives every Wednesday at 11 Eastern time. But tomorrow, because I'm on Camino, it's going to be at 1 Eastern time as it is today. And I will be in Santiago de Compostela. So, pretty cool. One of the other things I thought I would do today in the last few minutes is just to show you, for those of you that don't know, this is your pilgrim passport. So this is, you get it stamped everywhere you go on the Camino de Santiago. I shouldn't say everywhere you go. You have to get 2 stamps per day the last 100 kilometers, and which is not hard to do because you can get stamps in every bar, restaurant, church, place that you stay, hotel, accommodation. And they're just, I mean, and it's cool to ask people about their stamps because they have various meanings behind them. Like this one here today, we got apparently Philip II did the Camino de Santiago in 1554, and so one of these guys has his stamp that says just that he was here in this town. The building he stayed in, he was telling us, is in ruins, but he likes to acknowledge this. How they know this, me being from America, I can't imagine knowing that a specific person passed by this very point in 1554, but that's a whole other thing. And they have, I mean, this place, you can see a dinosaur here, which is not the first thing you think about on the Camino de Santiago. But we got to this place, and this guy has stones that he has carved into all kinds of different statues. They've got a dinosaur. They've got, of course, St. James. They've got this arch with tractors on it. I mean, it's just this eclectic mix. And the guy was actually there. And I asked him, the Santiago statue, what did it take to build it? And he said, oh, it took 2 of us about 20 days. And I mean, he just made it like, oh, no big deal. I said, is this what you do for work? He said, no, we just like to do it. It's just stunning to me, the kinds of people that you meet on the Camino de Santiago. And I love the credential more so, that's what this is called, more so than the Compostela. The Compostela is what you get at the end. It's like the, I did it certificate, and it's in Latin, and I'll get that tomorrow in Santiago. But to me, I mean, the memories from looking at these places where I stayed, I have the places that I stayed in here. I have shops, coffee shops where I stopped. This one, specifically, it says, you are on a trip of personal growth. The stars are guiding you. Buen Camino. So just, I mean, that's what that one says in Spanish. So And for those of you that have seen the movie The Way, this is what they're showing you in the beginning. I don't know if you realize that, but they're showing you a credential with various stamps, and then you put the date, so that this is what you bring to the pilgrim office in order to get your official um, credential when you are finished with the Camino de Santiago. And then, yeah, so that's what I have for you today. And then tomorrow, I will get a stamp right here down at the bottom, and that's the space for the stamp from the cathedral. And today, one of the guys we're walking with said, "Okay, so you've done this before. What's it like as far as getting your Compostela? Do you have to wait in a long line? Blah blah blah." And I was telling him how it is all streamlined now. It's amazing. It's like clockwork to get your Compostela when you get to Santiago. My first time I did have to wait. Well, my first few times you had to wait in a pretty long line. But I went through the whole process with them of how you do it now, registering with a QR code, all this stuff. And so again, it was just I'm just always delighted to be able to help people out with their Camino questions, whether it's, on a post that I'm writing or with a client that I'm working with, or when I'm literally on the Camino and someone knows that I've done it before and I'm able to answer their questions. So anyway, so thank you again for being with me. And till tomorrow, we'll have our last live together until the next time I get to be on the Camino de Santiago, which will probably be in October, when I go with my first group. Okay, guys, thanks so much. Buen camino. Hasta luego.